Hi, this is Nathan Cavedo from the Merced County Office of Education, your host for this episode of Community Conversations, a weekly radio show brought to you by KYOS. Community Conversations features local people talking about education, government, and community activities and issues in Merced County.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome to this week's show of Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, sitting in for Nathan Cavedo for this week, and it's a pleasure to introduce our first guest of the day is Dr. Stephen Gomes, who's our Merced County Superintendent of Schools. And Steve's going to talk about an innovation that he's created since he became a Superintendent of Schools, the annual report of our schools. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Roger.
So tell us about how you got into doing this annual report, and then when you can go into some of the things that you feel are really the highlights of it.
Well, one of the things that we were looking at, and some frequent questions I get from the community are, how are our schools doing? What's it cost for education in Merced County, and those kinds of questions. And so I thought it would be a good idea to put something together annually that kind of gave a report. The taxpayers of this state and county spend about $650 million, and I wanted to show them what they were getting for their money.
I think it's great. Nathan works here, and he's worked for you, and he does this program, and I hear him talk about the effort that went in your staff to put together this thing. I looked at it on the website, which we can talk about that it's on the website, and it's just a beautiful publication and has some really interesting information.
Yeah, we thought that it was important to let our communities in Merced County know what our demographics were in terms of student ethnicity, and also the number of students we have in special education is, and in some areas is actually growing, and so and costing more money all the time. But if I can just jump into it a little bit. One of the things that kind of surprised people is the number of students, and I use the analogy during my presentation that we have about a little over 56,000 students in K-12, and if you add all of the preschool students, that would be all the children that were 3 years old all the way to 12th grade, seniors in high school, you would have about 70,400 students roughly. Well, just to give you some context, that's equal to every man, woman, and child in the cities of Atwater, Los Banos, and Hillmar combined. That's the number of children that are in a classroom or in a daycare center every day, and it takes about 2,500 teachers to do that. Some of them credentialed in the elementary and high school students, some not credentialed, and for preschool. Not credentialed in the traditional way.
Though, aren't they?
But yes,
it's a little different than being a certificated teacher, obviously.
They actually go through several certifications in order to be able to teach like Head Start and preschool. But it's a different program. And of course they have a different audience and a lot shorter. But one of the things that surprised people were, and this is according to the Post-Secondary Education Commission, and that is that Merced County sends about 53% of their graduates, there are 4,000 seniors each year that graduate in this county, to college. That's how many enroll. Now, to give you some comparison, Stanislaus County is 45%, Madera 14%, and Fresno 18%. So we rank actually sixth in the state in sending our kids to college. Now that's this number of students that enroll, and they got there at least the first day. And we have a lot of them that still graduate and come back, but and we have a lot of them that graduate and don't come back.
But compare those numbers to Fresno, Madera, it's an incredible comparison.
We rank sixth in the state,
yep.
And so we're ahead of a lot of them. Now,
I remember reading the Modesto Bee just recently had an article about how many went on to high school from Stanislaus County, and I remember the numbers being lower than I thought.
And then when you look at our residents, though, We have 19% of our residents have a college degree of some kind, 2 or 4 year degree. 22% have attended some college, but have not gotten a degree. So altogether, that's 41%. So if 53% of our graduates are at least enrolling in college, then why don't we have something close to 53% living here? And I would suggest to you that 12% difference are those folks that are students that have graduated or have gone to other places and seeking higher paying jobs or just seeking jobs.
I might add that there also has been a tremendous push by UC Merced and other educational institutions to get first-time college students to
Correct.
school, and it would kind of indicate to me that they've been, that drive both at UC Merced and probably all in the high schools and all has been somewhat successful in kicking our numbers up, which is really good news. Huh?
It is good news, and one of the things that I've heard since I've been county superintendent, well, actually even before that, was that we don't have the educated workforce to bring the kinds of industry, light industry that we would like to have here, and I would submit to you that that's a circular problem. I think that we have the workforce; they're just not living here because the jobs aren't here. And so, which one comes first? How do you get, you got to have the businesses here that are going to attract, that are going to have those kind of jobs for college graduates, and yet you got to keep them here long enough for the businesses to see that's going to transform that a little bit. Is that this is a trend that I see, is that the more UC Merced students I keep talking to that have come from other areas, they came to UC Merced for a reason, and whatever that reason is, they want to stay in Merced. A lot of them want to stay in Merced. And I can think of a young man, Ryan Heller, right now, who graduated and is now on Adam Gray's staff, our assembly member. Mm-hmm. And he's a UC Merced, and he had full intention of finding a job and staying here in the Merced area. And he is from Los Angeles, from the Los Angeles basin.
Oh, okay. So he's not related to the Hellers around Atwater.
No, he's not related to the Atwater Hellers. And
but that's a great story, and it's true. I've done stuff with UC Merced ever since it started, and I love to see, like, especially I think of some of the young ladies I see out there that went away to college and never dreamed that they would be back in Merced. They had, like my daughter had sights on San Francisco, right, and the Bay Area and that kind of stuff. And I don't doubt that these ladies didn't either. And now they're here working for a brand new university, and they're really excited. And I think at UC Merced, I don't know, what is there, maybe almost 2,000 employees out there now, I suppose? 5,000 kids? Maybe not 2,000, but there's surely over 1,000 employees, I bet, in that campus now.
Yeah, there is. There is
and
probably
those are
about
all new
1,500.
jobs, huh? They weren't here.
Correct.
They weren't here 7-8 years ago.
That is correct.
And there'll be more because they're planning. Well, they're trying to grow as best they can with the finances. So let's talk about this one part of your report. I think it's extremely important that we don't see very much. Is that what is it called? Comparisons, or putting the schools in the same par. So we're not comparing Beverly Hills with Merced.
Correct. And I point out the state of the California Department of Education likes to use academic performance index, which is just really a measurement of academic performance, and it uses it takes the percent of students that scored proficient or better, which is like an A or B on the state mandated test, and it puts it into a formula and comes up with this number, and for that reason, it's called an index, and the higher the number, the better. The problem with that is that right off the bat, demographics will impact that number, particularly when you look at one of the best predictors of that number. When we first started doing this, one of the best predictors of that number was the percentage. The parent education level was the best predictor. If that school's parent education level was pretty high, then you could bet that their academic performance index would also be high, more times than not. Now, that was when we came right out of the chute about 10 years ago, and that continues to happen as we go along here. So if that's not and I guess what I'm saying is it's not an accurate measure. It may or may not be an accurate measure of the instructional program going on at that school. So what is? Well, I think that the California Department of Education doesn't talk a lot about it, but if you look at the similar school rankings, you can go on a website and look at them. I've put them on page 6. I put all of the similar school rankings on one page so that we can see every school. And basically, what it does is it takes a school and based on 14 student and school characteristics. It finds 99 other schools like that school, or similar, not like, similar to
99. It's a big number. It's not just a small group then.
Correct. It's 100, so 100 schools. And it also, on the website, it'll tell you what schools they used. And they're usually from all over the state, but very similar. And then it uses the API to rank within that group. So if you have a 10, that means your school in that group is in the top 10%. If you have a 1, you're in the bottom 10% of that group. Now, but you can't say, well, that's because the demographics are different, because they're not. They're very similar. So what's the difference between 1 and 10? I would suggest to you that the difference is the instructional program. And that those schools. Now, is it possible for students to have schools to have a high academic performance index and a high similar school ranking? Absolutely. Because, and oftentimes, what that high similar school ranking will lead them to a higher academic performance index. The most ridiculous one is a state ranking of academic performance, in my opinion, is a state ranking where they take all the schools and they rank them.
Like the highest score goes top.
The highest score is in the top 10%, lowest score in the bottom 10%, taking no account for demographics. And now, Governor Brown, in his proposal budget proposal for this year or for the upcoming years, has taken that into consideration, and in fact is kind of reshuffling the money that's being given to schools, and those schools that have a high percentage of English language learners and high percentage of low socioeconomic are going to be receiving more money over the next 7 years.
It has, I see a lot of talk about that, and I knew right away that Merced County would be a beneficiary of such a thing, but I don't think San Francisco and Los Angeles are like that very much, and they got a lot more political clout than Merced County does. Has anything come out, and so the districts can start doing some budgeting based on this new philosophy, so to speak?
Most of the districts, because it's still the governor's proposal, and it takes the legislature to make the budget, to approve the budget. Legislature has collectively basically said, well, it's going to look something like what the governor's proposing, but it's not going to be exactly that. So there's been a lot of discussion, and like it always is, we're preparing school budgets right now for next year and the 2 years after, and we're taking kind of our best guesstimate, and we're going to be looking at it. But to answer your question, I think that the governor's going to get it pretty much his way, and
that would be interesting because there's a lot of fellows that represent LA and San Francisco, and those
Absolutely.
guys fight every penny that goes to us.
But there are a lot of areas though. San Francisco just isn't Marin County or Woodside or
right.
So there's a lot of areas even in San Francisco and
in Los Angeles
would
be a beneficiary
that would benefit from this local control funding formula, LCFF.
To give just one example, and I'm looking at a list that's alphabetical, and Eileen Coburn School happens to be in Atwater. They had a 790, which is pretty darn good.
Yes.
But they came out in the top 10 percentile
Correct.
under similar schools. And Eileen Coburn is from a little bit poorer part of Atwater, and you would expect their performance to be not as well as some other schools, and yet 790 is a darn good number.
It's a very good
regardless of where you're located.
Absolutely.
And that's just one example. And if you look on his page 6 on that report, you'll see all the schools in the county, I presume, are
and then
on this list.
there's a lot of things to know about this as well. When you look at schools, and I have last year's the 2011 score, and then next to the 2012 score, and you'll see that a school like Eileen Coburn actually went down 10 points. They were 800 in 2011.
Wow.
And you'll see that sometimes, especially when you have very small numbers. When I say small numbers, under 300 under
It can
200.
vary quite a bit because of the small.
Because one
group,
student
yeah.
has one or
much
two
more
students
impact on the
has a
total
greater
score.
impact.
Yep. That's our statistics lessons, right?
That's one of the things. And one of the and I'm going to give you a disclaimer, and I think it's in here, but I'm going to tell you that the continuation schools are not in here because they're really statistically insignificant. It's not fair to put them on the same list because continuation schools, they get students at the very earliest when they're 16. So that would be the spring of their sophomore year. And so they have them. They could be testing then, and they've never had them, and they test them, 2 months
They
after
didn't get
the
there
end.
because they were necessarily model students either.
No, they probably missed a lot of school and behind in credits. Yeah, and so and even if they came over as juniors, so it's really a number that's not statistical. It's what statisticians call a insignificant statistic. It's not relevant. Now, California Department of Education probably disagree with me on that, but I don't care.
Isn't that issue with the No Child Left Behind too, and the fact that all students kind of count the same, even though some obviously have a much bigger challenge to learn?
Yeah, we're in the fourth year of we're in the fifth year now of when No Child Left Behind should have been redone. Congress can't agree, or actually they can't agree on anything.
Right.
And certainly can't agree on this. And so we're stuck with No Child Left Behind. A lot of states have applied for waivers. They can pretty much ignore it now. I don't know how the U.S. Department of Education can give a school a waiver of a federal law, but that's not I'm not an attorney, and that's not
Well,
for
that's
me
kind
to
of going on with
decide.
some other things out there too. I think we need to kind of wind up. Why don't
Sure.
you talk about? It's a beautiful report, and it's beautiful on the website. Even if you can't get one in your own hand, why don't you talk about how they can find this on your website, Steve?
Well, we would love to. Thanks. And one of the things I should mention, Roger, is that the two luncheons that we hosted, the one in Merced hosted by the Educational Employees Credit Union, the one in Los Banas hosted by the Merced School Employees Credit Union, and then because they have been great educational partners and believe in what we're doing, and then Stone and Youngberg, a financial institution, paid for all the printing. So basically, we've done all of this at no cost to the taxpayer.
And I had written sponsors on the top of my first page to remember to. I think it's always important to mention when you get help like that.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and they were pretty pleased with the results, I think.
Good. Now, where can we find?
But
this report?
you can find this at mcoe.org. That's our website, and it's actually mcoe.org/annual report, one word, annual report. But
Well, that's not too hard to remember then.
Or if you Google, just Google mcoe.org and it'll come up.
And you'll see the annual report option there.
The other thing that I want to let your viewers know that if anyone, one of the reasons, as I said at the beginning of this, is that we wanted to put something in people's hands. So when someone maybe moving into the area asks a realtor, "What's the schools like? What's going on in the schools?" That this provides a nice document that they can just hand to them. So we made 1,000 copies of this, and we're happy to distribute them. We already had one realtor in Los Banas take 25 copies. So
yeah, and I can see educational institutes like UC Merced where people think they're coming to the sticks.
Yeah.
This is a valuable tool to show that their children, the employees' children, can attend schools that do well. And
Correct.
And we're just not in the boondocks, and we're forced to be reckoned with. Steve Gomes, Superintendent of Merced County Schools, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Roger.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, sitting in this week in the interview host chair, and our guest this time is Stephen Muyeso. And I said his name right, but I wouldn't want to spell it for you. And he has a very distinct honor that fell upon him because of his professionalism, and that was to sing at Merced Theater last weekend with Frank Brojo, who sang 2,700 performances of the Phantom, and they had set up, which I thought was really interesting, a day where people on Friday evening people could come and audition to sing as Christine and Raul, and the song was
All I Ask of You.
All I Ask of You. And so what I've asked Stephen to come in today is talk about that experience, okay? And so Stephen, it's yours.
All right. Well, it was actually very kind of him because he was brought in to give the show Frank D'Ambrosio's Broadway. But part of that was part of his performance is he offers a master class the day before with the audition. And so we all came in and we auditioned singing All I Ask of You in random couples. And then he picked 6 finalists to sit through the master class. The master class was open to the public. There was no admission for the master class. Anyone who wanted to come in and watch was more than welcome to. It was very kind of him to give that time of his. And so he gave the master class. We had another song to audition with, or to sing with for the master class. And as we were singing it, he would stop us and he would give us pointers on how to more properly convey the passage or to properly emote, get the proper emotion into the words. And it was really just kind of a really neat opportunity to get to sit there on stage with a man who's given 2,700 performances of The Phantom.
Besides a bunch of other plays
but
as
besides
well.
the fun of, I did the math, at 8 performances a week, that's 4 years straight of performing the same role over and over and over again. And so to be able to sit on stage with him and sing your part and have him fine-tune your craft from his standpoint was really kind of a neat thing. And so then after he would give all that, he would have you sing your song again with his coaching, and he would actually, there were a couple times where he sang with the performers as they were singing their song.
All I Ask of You or different ones?
They're different personal choices.
Okay.
Like for me, we did Sweeney Todd last year at Playhouse. My song was Joanna, the one I sang as Anthony. Mm-hmm. And it was actually kind of a funny thing after I sang that. He goes, funny story, I sang it as Anthony on Broadway in my first Broadway show, and you sang it better than I did. And I was like, wow, that's kind of...
Isn't that something? Does that not make you feel good? I mean, well, see, that guy can make you feel
did.
good.
He scared me to death by saying he performed it himself, but then he gave that compliment, and he was just very complimentary of all the performers. And he was very kind, very supportive of all their craft. And so after you did that and you sang, then he had us come up in specific pairs of the remaining 6 to sing All I Ask of You again. And then at the end of that, he picked the 2, myself and a young lady named Jillian from Fresno, to sing for the following night.
You weren't paired with her at all in the rehearsals?
No, I auditioned with her.
Oh, you did audition?
On the second go-round at the end, and he picked us... But yeah, she actually, she was good enough that she wasn't even part of the master class. She wasn't asked to be part of the master class for the coaching, but he still thought she was good enough to bring her back.
So the master class wasn't all 27 of you that came down and auditioned?
They were all welcome to watch. Again, it was an open,
but
free.
It was hands-on with the people
remaining
he picked,
6.
and the rest were sitting in the audience watching and learning from what they saw on the stage.
Absolutely.
What an unbelievable experience.
It was. I mean, all the stuff that happened backstage, being able to interact with him, talk to him, ask him questions, for me, was as amazing an experience as being able to just sing on stage. I mean, I sing on stage with Playhouse and things like that. And though that was, the Merced Theater stage is gorgeous.
I was going to ask you about what you thought when you're on stage at Merced Theater.
I'm a little ashamed of myself. This is the first time I've been there since it's been renovated, and it is beautiful.
Well, what a time
gorgeous.
to make your debut.
Yeah, I was very flattered. I was very humbled by it. But just being able to interact with him, because I do plan on making another go at this as a professional career. And so to be able to sit down with someone who's been through the process on all aspects. He's been in the movie industry. He was in The Godfather 3.
That's right.
Opposite Al Pacino. So he knows how the movie industry goes. He knows how the music industry goes. He knows how theater goes. And so to be able to talk to him about the nuts and bolts about that was just as invaluable for me as
You think you'll have future contact with him? Did he give you contact information?
He is my Facebook friend. I am Facebook friends with Frank D'Ambrosio, but I think that's more along the lines of keeping in contact with each other, so he can. He literally said to keep tabs on me. So I don't know what that particularly entails, but it was kind of a neat experience.
We're about out of time. Let's talk about what's next.
Yes. Coming up next after Jesus Christ Superstar closes at Playhouse Merced, we have the season preview on April 6th, which is going to show the next season of Playhouse Merced shows. We got a heck of a season coming up, I tell you what. We got some really great shows coming up. And then April 12th is the opening weekend of Urinetown. Now, that's a weird name. I understand Urinetown. Yes, that you didn't mishear that. But it is a musical comedy. It's a dark comedy, satirical. But the music is superb. It's Joe Hypes and Daryl Lingenfelter. If you went and saw Sweeney Todd, it's the same directors who gave us Sweeney Todd. So, the music's going to be great. The direction's going to be great. It's hilarious. The jokes just keep coming at you. The storyline is fantastic. The music is, all the musical parts are just great.
So don't let the name
fool you. I mean, yes, it's a dark comedy about that subject, but we're encouraging a lot of people to come opening weekend and just try it. Just take a look. Just have a watch. And if you like it, tell your friends, because we understand that word of mouth is going to be really important for this one.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure to have Steve Milieso here today, and what an honor to be picked to sing on stage with Frank D'Ambrosio and that young lady from Fresno, and what a great job they did. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Roger.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, sitting in today, and our guest for this segment is Diane Conway, who's the marketing manager for the Merced County Fair.
Hello, Roger.
Hi, Diane. What's on your agenda today?
Well, I'm here to remind people that the fair is coming up real soon. June is not that far away. The fair is June 12th through 16th. Well, no, not for me. It's coming up fast, so I'm here reminding everybody it's coming up quick. I'm really interested today to talk about people getting their fair entries in, whether you've done it before or you've never entered the fair. We have our exhibitor's handbook out. It's been out for a while, but we have it online, or it's available at the fair office at 900 Martin Luther King Jr. Way. If you want a hard copy of it, it has all the information that you would need to enter something in the fair. And we have the forms in it. If you have any questions, you can contact the fair office about doing an entry if you've never done that before. It's something really fun to do if people haven't done that before. So we're encouraging people to get their entries in as soon as possible, whether you have a collection, if you're a photographer, if you do canning, woodworking, any kind of hobby. You may have something that you already have around the house that you'd like to enter. Get it off your wall, get it out of your house, and enter it in the fair.
I mean, you're right. When you really start thinking about it, there are a lot of different categories.
Hundreds
of things
at
the fair. And when you walk around, if you have a chance without your children dragging you to the carnival, you can be surprised what you'll find at the Merced County Fair.
We have all of our exhibits, and it's really fun to check them out. But it's also fun to enter because you could win a ribbon, even a cash prize or some other prize. So it would be cool if you just went online and checked out the handbook to see what was there if you haven't done so already, or like I said, to pick up a copy of the handbook and see what's there. It really doesn't take very much time, and all we're talking about is getting the forms filled out right now. You don't have to bring the actual exhibits to the fair until closer to the fair, but we're talking about getting the paperwork in by the deadline so that you can go to the fair and see your exhibits on display.
Now, there's one other little deadline to think about. My son-in-law is a gardener, okay? And because the fair is in June instead of July, you got to get things ready a lot earlier than normal.
Right.
Like tomatoes, for instance. I remember he has to plant them way different than the normal time, because the normal time they came off about July. And now the fair's in mid-June.
We're still kind of making that
plan
adjustment.
Ahead for that. It's a little tough on the gardeners.
Right. It started 3 years ago back in June. And people are still making that adjustment a little bit, but people have gotten used to it, and they love the June fair.
The dates are great, but for the gardener,
but with the gardening and the tree fruit and all that, it's a little bit more challenging.
That's right. The fruit, there's not near as much
right. But most of the entries are due, the forms are due May 9th, Thursday, May 9th. So that's the date that I'm here to remind everybody about.
Right. Don't worry about getting it done. You got to get
it just 9th. Get those forms in. That's
if you don't do it then,
the deadline.
You can't show it.
Right. So just get that. That's the first formality, to get get that entry form in, and then you're good as far as that goes. And then the other deadline that I'm talking about, you may have gotten a new TV to watch the Super Bowl, or you got a new TV for Christmas, or a computer, or a new laptop, and it's still sitting around the house collecting dust, and you don't know what to do with it. You just want to get it out of there. We have an e-waste drive coming up in connection with the city's annual spring cleanup. And so I want to remind everybody what the dates are for that. So that would be April 13th and 14th, 2 weekends, and April 20th and 21st, Saturday and Sunday. 2 weekends. It's the city's spring cleanup. You have to be a resident and provide proof of residency to participate in the city's spring cleanup. But as far as the e-waste drive that's done in connection with that, you can bring any of your e-waste items.
And be a county resident and you're okay.
Yeah, you could live anywhere and you could drop off the e-waste items at the fairgrounds and their other 3 sites.
But your sofas need to come from Merced.
Well, the items that you're dropping off, for that you would have to have the residency proof.
Okay.
But yeah, if you have any of those old electronics items, and we have a complete list on our website that says what we'll accept. Things like big appliances like washers and stuff like that. The city is accepting those kinds of things. And I think the city has information on their website as to what kinds of large items that they will take at no charge. But that would have to be also a residency proof there. But that's a really good thing to do if you want to kind of do some spring cleaning and circle your calendar for those dates, April 13th through 14th and April 20th through 21st, Saturday and Sunday. The cleanup locations are open from 6:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. both weekends at the Fairgrounds 11th Street parking lot between MLK and G Street. And then there are 3 other locations throughout the city at Merced, by Merced High School, at Golden Valley High School, and by Merced College.
Good. All right. Well, now where do you go if you want to find the information about the fair? You want to do the website one more time?
www.mercedcountyfair.com.
And that's where you can find about the handbook, about entries, about when the fair is going to be, about the carnival, and about the e-waste drive.
E-waste and anything else that pertains to the fair, it's all there.
All right. Diane Conway, thank you so much for being here as the marketing manager for the Merced County Fair. And don't forget, the fair is?
It's June 12th through 16th.
June 12th through 16th. The middle of June is to the middle of July for us old guys. Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, sitting in as the host for this segment, and our guest is Lyle Allen, and he's the construction chairman of Habitat for Humanity. Lyle, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much, Ron.
And let's talk about Habitat for Humanity.
All right, a little history of Habitat for Humanity International. Was founded by Millard and Linda Fuller in 1976, but probably came to most people's attention through the volunteer work of 2 notable people. That was Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, and they really put Habitat on the map, and in fact turned it into an international organization. So it was founded in 1976, but since then, Habitat has constructed over 600,000 homes worldwide.
That's an unbelievable number, isn't it? Of course, that 76 is, 40, almost 40 years ago, huh?
Right.
So let's talk about Merced. How did we get involved?
Okay, in 1994, 2 groups, one in Atwater and one here in Merced, of the Methodist Church, got together and said, let's try to establish a local Habitat for Humanity. And they spent some time working on that, putting it together. But it came to life in that year, in 1994. Over the years, we've accomplished 1 rehab, and the rest have all been new construction. But we're currently working on our 13th project.
Think about that. That's 13 homes built by volunteers in about, 16, 17, 18 years or so.
Right. Takes us a while to build one.
A former employee of mine in my older days said he was 71 and he was the youngest guy on the project.
And
so I'm not calling you old, Lyle, but let's just I assume you're a little older than 71.
Absolutely. Yeah, and in fact, we have a group I call the old guys. We work Tuesday morning, Thursday morning, and Saturday morning, and we're pretty good from about 8 till noon. And then we folded up at that point. But over the years, a lot of those people have been with us very regularly and have a long record. I think one of the fellows, in fact, who's a regular volunteer at this point, was volunteering with Habitat before I came to volunteer. So I'm not even the oldest.
Now, one of the things I recall is that the recipient of the home also has to put some blood and sweat and tears in this thing. How does that work?
All right. Yes, each family has to put in a total of 500 hours, their sweat equity. Essentially, that's their down payment on their home. And they can do that by coming in on Saturdays. In this current case, where we're building now, Aurora Andrade and her two boys, Aurora often has to work Saturdays. So she'll come in the evenings, and it's really a great help to us because she will clean the site and remove hazards so we don't have any accidents. And so and she does a beautiful job. And
So as a single mom, it gets a little tougher to
Right.
put that sweat equity in. I assume her children are a little young to be as helpful as an adult.
they
could
help
be.
a little bit, yeah. And in fact, we're fairly open in terms of that. Her immediate family, I'll call it the extended family, close friends and people like that are allowed to volunteer and contribute their hours to her total.
Now, how do you come to select a recipient of your project?
Okay, Habitat operates basically as a whole subset or a whole series of committees, and we have a family selection committee, and they're charged with that responsibility of advertising when we get ready to build a home, of then going through a orientation or indoctrination process so the families understand what the rules are, what has to happen, and then finally a selection process. And that can take approximately 2 months probably to go through the entire cycle.
And this is all volunteers doing the work, too.
That's right.
There's no paid staff on
Right.
Merced Habitat for Humanity.
No, in fact, the larger cities, Modesto, Fresno, have paid executive directors. Habitat here in Merced is 100% volunteer.
100% blood, volunteer blood in the
Right.
thing. Now, you went a little bit into the organizational structure. We talked about how people get there. What do you do when you're finished? I know I saw a picture in the paper now that I think about it recently about this lady and her two children. But what happens when you're done?
At the end of the process, we will have a dedication ceremony. And that's when symbolically the keys are turned over to the owner of the home. And they're in total possession, and the title to the home at that point changes. Up to this point, Habitat owns that home. When that dedication takes place, all the documents, the legal documents, have been signed and completed, and that
the
person
escrow
has
closes on the dedication.
has that home.
Now,
Right.
as far as finding a spot to build, does Habitat purchase a lot? Or I think I've heard Merced City mentioned a little bit, but I'm not sure.
Well, that's a good, and in fact, a few years back, lots were so expensive, we literally couldn't afford a lot. At that point, we went to the redevelopment organization here in Merced, and they helped us, and we were able to acquire 3 lots. Which we've been building out over time. So we had completed one, we're working on the second one now, and we are just getting started on the third. We're trying to start the third a little bit ahead of time so we can keep things moving.
Good. Well, our time has flown by. If people want more information on Habitat, how can they get that?
Go to our website, which is hfhmerced.org, or they can call me personally. I'd be happy to talk to anyone about Habitat.
All right.
And my phone number is 209-723-2671.
209-723-2671. If
Right.
you'd like to get more information on Habitat, or the website was
hfhmerced.org. HFH stands for Habitat for Humanity.
So that's an easy
Yeah.
website to remember, too. Well,
Right.
Lyle, thank you so much for being on, and it was a pleasure to meet a guy that's still working.
Thank you very much, Roger.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, filling the host chair up today, and our guest for this segment is Mike Conway, who is a man of many hats with the city of Merced. And two of them I know of are Public Information Officer and Parks and Recs Director. And I don't know how many others there are, but that's plenty.
That's enough for today. Thank you for having me on, Roger. I appreciate it.
And you're going to talk about Walmart, which I think is really exciting and way too long and coming, if you want my own personal opinion about that.
Well, thank you. And we had some extremely big news from the State Supreme Court. The Supremes, as we're fond of calling them, ruled in favor of the city. They said that they basically stopped the court actions by saying no to any more court action on behalf of the Walmart distribution center. They ruled that the city had done all of its due diligence in the environmental impact report, that actually having done 2 environmental impact reports and having it reviewed by numerous consultants and all of the other things that we did for that, and the millions of dollars that were spent and all of the experts that we hired and all of the work that was done was more than adequate, and that the project was well reviewed, and that we did not need to have any more review of it. And the Supreme Court turned thumbs down to the appeal that was put on behalf of it by the group that was suing the city.
Just in case our listeners forget, talk about when all this started. I mean, it's almost beyond our memory.
It was the original approach to the city was back in, I believe it was 2003, that they put feelers into our economic development department, and that was the initial, was, checking out to see if there were sites and things like that, and then started making more and more. The original project was, I think the official start date was about 2005, 2006 that they did that.
Think about that, 7 years ago, to try and get something for a business. And I was in business, and I did not want to wait 7 years between the time I feel I need something and the time I can start building it.
And
it is tough to do business in California, and this is Roger's opinion, not Michael's, all right?
Walmart was very, very good about that. Actually, my notes here say it was 2002 that they first approached the Economic Development Department there. And they knew that it was going to be a tough road to hoe, as the old expression goes there. They knew that there were going to be lawsuits and things like that. So they built that into their timeline, and they are still interested in the project. They have expressed interest all along, and they do know there are a few things that they've got to do now. There's some permits that they have to pull, and things like that. Their timeline now is for them to, they'd like to break ground about fall at the latest spring of next year.
So even after all this, it takes a while then to finally get the last plans done. Yeah, if you've been working on something for 7 years, you might even have changed your mind about exactly how you want to do things. Huh?
Remember,
technology's changed in warehousing.
Technology's changed. They've built a few more warehouses, so that this is going to be a state-of-the-art warehouse. I mean, this is a 1.2 million square foot warehouse and distribution center. Back when they had their plans then, things have changed. They've done some tweaking and refining and all of that. This was a green warehouse back then. Walmart is a green company, despite what everybody thinks. They know that green saves them money, so that they want to make sure that every move that package makes within that plant is the most efficient and effective, cost-effective movement that it makes. So they've been studying all of their plants, making sure that everything that they're doing is going to be saving them money and saving them time, saving them space, so that they don't have any wasted movement on it. So, yeah, they are still going to be having to make some tweaking of the plans. They have to get some state permits, which everybody, with that, it's a huge plant, so they've got to go through and get some state approvals on that.
But it's not like a cannery, which is one of our typical ag industries around here, where you have a wastewater problem. I mean, you don't have that sort of thing. And you have year-round jobs. It's a wonderful addition to Merced, and it just astounds me that people want to fight things like this. The other thing I wanted to throw in is you didn't have an interchange at the time all this began, did we? It was maybe
well,
in planning
it was,
or was hoped for, but
it was
wasn't being
actually
done,
it was being funded at that time.
It
And,
was,
and
okay.
just to let people know, the Mission Interchange was actually on the books before Walmart came along. I mean, that was planned for.
So they had that in mind that they were going to
Yes.
have because it's been tough access there from McLean Pacific for many years.
And part of it was access to from McLean Pacific, but also it was access
Right.
to UC Merced. That.
So it serves a lot of
It
that,
serves
that
a lot
overpass
of-
is going to serve a
yeah.
lot of purposes, and it's going to provide when that UC Merced Parkway gets done, it'll provide a much easier way south for Merced residents
Campus
on the
Parkway
north side.
will provide access to all of North Merced all the way up to the campus, and provide. The existing Mission Interchange will provide easy access for Walmart and the other. There's a whole lot of other land around there for shopping centers, for other warehouses. We've had other businesses that have been inquiring since actually the court appeals have been approved. They've been asking
That
about.
made some news in the development community. Well, that's great news. You know, for a bit of trivia, if I recall, Merced was in the running when Walmart eventually located in Porterville. Is that not right? Of course, that's a little before your time, but
I think they had expressed some interest in Merced too.
I recall them being in the running at that time, and maybe even down to one of the finalists.
Remember, Merced is the nearest Walmart warehouses are Porterville and Red Bluff. So
Red
there's a
Bluff, whoa.
huge area that's unserved by the warehouses there, and it's going to save them a lot of money. It's going to cut down on a lot of pollution by being able to save truck traffic trips between there. So
Yeah, I don't like to badmouth Porterville, but they are a long ways off Highway 99. If you're wanting to go north or south from Porterville, well, you can go south and take a shortcut to Bakersfield.
we're
But
not
going
going to
north,
take cheap shots at Porterville.
all right, that was me, not Mike, doing that.
And-
Boy, it's a
and-
good thing I can make those disclaimers, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. And just for people who aren't familiar with the project, there one of the things that the warehouse would do, they will be hiring 600 people at the start, and the goal is to hire 1,200 at full build out. Originally, they were talking their jobs would be paying $14 an hour. Well, the average pay at Walmart is now up to $17. So that will be,
And that's with benefits, too.
that will, with benefits. So these people
And
will
year-round.
be starting with some nice paying
it's a
jobs
tremendous
there.
addition to Merced.
That would be lowering our unemployment rate by almost a full percentage point. So you think about that. That's not even with the multiplier. They
Yeah.
talk about what kind of an effect those jobs would have throughout the because those people are going out and they're buying other services. They're going shopping. They're buying groceries. They're buying things at fast food. All those other multiplying. They're buying gas. All that stuff there. Forget all that. That's just straight 1% drop in the.
I'll give you another example, personal. My wife and I were in Porterville for a night. We stayed at a motel that wasn't very far from Walmart. I'd say at least half of that motel was occupied by vendors or Walmart employees, one or the other, who were there for 3 or 4 days or whatever to work in the sale of their products or to how to manage the warehouse or whatever. And that was a year-round people visiting Porterville to do something either as a vendor or as an employee at that warehouse site.
I don't have the figures on the construction jobs itself, but we're talking about an 18-month, 2-year construction. But you can imagine with a 1.2 million square foot warehouse, that's an awful lot of construction jobs. That's an awful lot of cement or concrete that's going to be poured. That's an awful lot of asphalt that's going to be poured, a lot of sheet metal that's going to be put up.
Technology.
And then to put in all of the technology inside, we're talking, they've got a lot of cable in there, a lot of fiber optics, the conveyor systems that are going to be put in there, all that stuff that's going to be going in. The jobs that are local jobs that, our guys can do here, the basic concrete and the ones that I mentioned, okay, those are going to be filled locally. The ones that can't be filled, those people are going to be staying in our hotels, our motels and stuff. That's an awful lot of jobs that we've got going in there. The fees that they're going to be paying, we figure, and these are old numbers, so the numbers may have gone up somewhat, but at least $3 million. Local schools are expected to have at least $400,000 in fees from the Walmart project that would be going in there. So it's going to be a heck of a shot in the arm just locally. So yeah, you can imagine why people are pretty excited by this, and why I didn't not when the news of this came around, I think there was just a huge sigh of relief. I didn't see any fist bumping and no high fives and all that, but it was a lot of congratulations and just nodding and going, "Wow, it's finally done." And
it sounds like the way you described it, the court pretty much said this is it.
Oh no, this is it.
So you couldn't have got a better decision out of the court than what happened.
We had 9 judges who said the city.
Well, it wasn't one of the 3 judge panels; it was the whole gang.
No, this was the whole gang that said we are done. This is it. There is no other.
Good. And our interview is about to be done, too.
Thank you, Roger. We appreciate it.
Mike, thank you so much for being on Community Conversation, and thanks also for all the work you do to help bring people here to the program, and we don't see you in front of the mic very often.
Roger, thank you for being behind the mic and all the people you bring, too.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.